Here, Dr. Leah Lagos, sports psychologist, sports editor for Daily National, Mike Bako, and neurosurgeon at New York Presbyterian, Cornell, Weill, Dr. Roger Hartl. Thank you all so much for being here. And I think, I'll just to put this out there, is that I think the reason we're talking about this story is here was a young man who, he wasn't an all-star player. He never played a single game. He wrestled, but again, we're talking about concussion. So how serious is it? Is it practice? Where is it happening? So we wanted to bring you guys in here because, look, a lot of high school kids are out there practicing just the same way. So we want to make sure that you're informed on this issue. So let's start with you, doctors. CTE, what is it? What do we need to know?
Dr. Hartl.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is a pattern that we see in the brains, in the neuropathological findings of brains of especially of boxers. It was described in the 1920s. As a very distinct picture of findings that you see in these pathological specimen of brains of boxers. And it was reconfirmed and kind of rediscovered really just a few years ago in the brains of football players, of military personnel, individuals with a history of profound concussions.
But can CTE be linked to depression and suicide?
That is a very important question, and I think we have these case reports of athletes who commit suicide, which is terrible, and we have to take this very seriously because a lot of these athletes obviously have a long history of concussion, and there may be a link, but we don't know based on the data that we have available right now. We just don't know. We don't know enough information as to what was going on in these patients' lives that really led to this terrible decision to take their own lives at the end.
But we've seen this a number of times, Mike, in the NFL in particular, right?
Sure, you see it in the NFL. You see it with players like Dave Duerson, Junior Seau, guys who seem to have it all, and then you hear these stories post-career of depression, of marital trouble, relationship trouble, financial troubles, all of these things leading together. And then you look back at their career and you see multiple concussions, and you see multiple concussions not taken care of. You see guys like Seau not missing games because of those concussions and just keep on going on doing the same thing over and over again.
But Mike, that's the NFL. Let's talk about college sports and how it's actually sanctioned and what people look out for in terms of concussions. Are they even keeping track of that stuff?
Most of them are keeping track of it, but the protocol in the NFL versus college versus high school is vastly different. In the NFL, you have multiple independent neurosurgeons from prestigious hospitals. At college stadiums, you have the trainer and the team doctor looking out for these things.
Yeah.
Let's not fool ourselves. College football, they're raking in billions of dollars in TV revenues. You're telling me that Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, these teams should have the same protocols put in that a team like the New York Giants have. But when you look at other schools, other high schools, they just don't have that infrastructure where they could do that.
Right, and again, we're talking about a lot of games and whatnot. But what about during practices? I mean, I played high school football, and in practice we had a trainer at my high school. But look, you get knocked around a bit, and it's part of a practice, right? Or no?
A word that the New York Giant trainer used in a New York Times article of, we're not going to use the word dinged anymore. That's the culture of football. Probably when you were growing up. Oh, you just got a stinger. You got your bell wrong. Get back in there. Next man up. These are all words, phrases, culture of football that need to change.
Let's talk about the psychology of it all. I mean, what do we need to know as parents and look out for things like this? Obviously, this mother said, she noticed her son acting erratically. The behavior was there. The pattern of depression was there. But obviously, he didn't get the help that he needed. And then we saw what happened, the outcome, in which no one wants for their own child.
First, we all need to understand that depression is very common after a concussion. In fact, it's 3 times more likely to occur after a concussion. And there's contributing factors. One could be related to the physical injury itself. Another is the emotional aftermath of the injury, the isolation, the loss of identity. And the third can be related to factors that are actually unrelated to the injury and have to do more with the pre-existing psychological condition of the individual prior to the injury itself.
Yeah, there really is so much to look at here. And again, you're looking at pictures of Costa Kara George. Right now, the coroner's going to be looking at his brain when they do the autopsy. Because again, they're trying to figure out all of these questions here, figure out if perhaps concussions did play a role in his death.
But thank you for being here. It was really an interesting conversation. And as a parent, I want to know what I can do to protect my kids. And obviously, it's a conversation you have to have with the teachers, the coaches, and know that the proper precautions are in place. And as a parent, look out for the psychological stuff. I just want to know, as a doctor, when do you tell a kid to go back to a field if they have a concussion, or do you have to make sure you follow up?
I think we're very careful these days. We take them out very early on if there's even a suspicion of a concussion. And then we follow these kids very, very carefully, very thoroughly. And then there's a graded step, a protocol of getting them back into action.
So it's case by case.
That takes at least a week, and it may take much longer if the symptoms persist.
Yeah, case by case basis, everybody. For more information on concussions and all these athletes and what's happening, please go to our website at pix11.com.
All right, time now is 7:42, and you know how police use breathalyzers to test for drunk drivers? Well, now researchers are working on a tool to detect drivers that are high.